Hey everyone, Sean from QWERTY Comics. Thanks for stopping by today. So I wanted to chat with you today about CGC's pre-screen and thinking about whether or not you want to opt in for it or take the grade that you get. And so I wanted to kind of look at it in regards to this really hot comic right now, Something is Killing Children #1. I have a 9.8 in it. And what I wanted to think about today is it worth it for the pre-screen, or should you just take whatever the grade is? And so this is something that will definitely vary from book to book and how something is trending, but I just wanted to kind of talk about logistics around it, mostly because I just sent out 25 books and I sat there and I was like, do I want to do the pre-screen? Do I want stuff sent back to me if it is not a 9.8? And I had to think about the books that I was sending out. Do I want to get that book back where I've now spent money on the book plus the new $8 versus the $5? It's just interesting thinking about just it goes up $3, but thinking about how much the cost and shipping is. And so when you start adding on how much it costs to ship out there, how much it costs to ship back, you're usually looking at almost $10 to $15 added to the book itself cost if it didn't meet the grade that you wanted it sent in as. And so those are some things to think about, whether, sort of the value of the book. Obviously, the more rare the book is, there's sort of that, you're just in it another $15. Maybe I want to sell it raw as is and kind of go from there. So what I want to do today is just kind of looking at how much this book is going for, and thinking about if let's say I did pre-screen this for a 9.8 and the book didn't come back a 9.8, say it was maybe a 9.6 or 9.4, should I have just had them grade it and then sell it for that slabbed graded price versus a raw price? And so there's a certain threshold where it becomes valuable, and then where it's no longer worth it to grade versus the raw sales. And obviously selling something raw is always hard, because unless you see it in person and you're a professional grader, you will know how much essentially the book is worth, and so based on previous sales and whatnot. So I looked up and used GPA analysis, which shows all the recent sales of graded books, and so you can kind of get an understanding of how much a book is going for. And this can help you understand, is the book hot? Is it definitely cooling off? Is now the time when I should buy it? So definitely thinking about that. So the first thing I noticed was, I keep pulling it back in, but it's such a great book. Is this book currently, as it stands right now in early May 2021, this book is fetching anywhere between $1,100 and $1,300 for 9.8, based on this algorithm. There was one for $2,100, but I don't know who would pay that much more, unless it was probably a different version of this book. So thinking about $1,100 to $1,200 raw, graded 9.8, that's an awesome sale. And then the book in a 9.6 is fetching anywhere from $585 to $800. And then when you step down to a 9.4, you're looking at $375 to $450. And then at a 9.2, it was around $300. There were that many sales in it. So just kind of thinking about how the price obviously goes down as the grade goes down, but thinking about where's that sort of sweet spot versus if I were to sell it raw and, based on sharing if there's any flaws with the books, how much it would sell for. So looking at just like raw sales recently on eBay, I saw that this book was selling anywhere around low of 400 and a high of 500. So thinking about that sweet spot, so say, maybe you sent this book out and it came back after the pre-screen of 9.8 and you're just like, damn it, what did I miss? And then you notice there's a slight ding in it. And so you're like, oh, okay. But that's the only one thing I can see. So it was probably like a very slight ding, but something that would have bring down the grade. And you're like, oh, well, this is probably a 9.6. So at that point, you've gotten the book back, and then you've now added whatever the shipping fees to and from CGC was, as well as the $8 pre-screen fee that you pay. So you're looking at that as the investment in top of the book again. So now you're just like, well, if I sell this, am I going to get 450 to 500? But say it was a 9.6, you would have gotten 585 to the 800. So you have to kind of like look and understand the condition of the book, of what it might be. So say you're like, oh, I think this is a 9.8. I think this is totally a 9.8. Definitely send that in. Obviously start training your eyes. But then if you think it might be a 9.6, maybe a 9.4, I would really look at how much the raw books are going for. And then also compare the sales of 9.4s and 9.6s to see if that graded slab is going to get you more money than the raw copy. And so this all sounds pretty like logical, but sometimes it just takes some time to like really think about how much is it worth to accept the 9.8, a different grade below it, and then just, say you do want to just sell it to clear it. So that's something to think about. Obviously, there's the whole other side where you want to have the 9.8 in your collection. Yes. But that's also the opportunity of say I was only into that book for $40. And so obviously I've made a huge profit on that, but thinking about say you have those like CGC books that are maybe selling for $100, I think maybe that's where you want to really decide, is it worth it that if this came back a 9.6, or does it need to be a 9.8 for me to make any profit on it? Because sometimes between a 9.8 to a 9.6 on a lower valued graded book is just totally not worth getting it slabbed. But then again, you're also into the book, the shipping fees plus the CGC cost. So at that point, you want to look at how much is that cost from all the shipping. And the way that I calculate the shipping to CGC is whatever I pay for the shipping, I divide it by the number of books that I sent out there. And that's what the shipping cost is per book. And then the same thing, CGC will calculate the shipping total back to you. Just divide that by the number of books and then you add that to it. So that's where you start thinking about the totals and how much you're putting into the book based on costs. Obviously, if everything else comes back graded in the 9.8s and then you ended up selling and making a profit, sure, you can just not count the rest of it. But this is where you just really kind of want to think about the grades. The other thing that I've noticed recently is that 9.6 market is coming back. I know it's always been there. I know there's people that have been perfectly happy with a 9.6 versus a 9.8. It's almost like 9.8 is the new 10, but but just sort of thinking about what it means to you for those grades. Sometimes it's just worth having the book, or is it totally worth about the profit margin that you make based on the cost versus sales as a seller? So these are things that I always recommend just sort of looking at the trends of the graded book, find out how much it costs to ship to a company to get graded. Obviously, the more books you send in, the cheaper it's going to cost you. And then you also want to think about like, what are the grading costs? Because like right now, the pre-screen's $8. And for me, I still have my discount at CGC. And so it's $20. So we're looking at a $12 difference to get something encapsulated and then sold. So you're just gonna have to like think about it in that way. So the books, the 25 that I sent out, I did it without a pre-screen. So I'm actually kind of curious because I want to know if I have a good trained eye to see if the book is still worth being sold, if it's a 9.6 or 9.4, or do I just start doing a cheap sell and just like sort of like eat some of the cost? Because at the end of the day, some of the books that I do sell, they'll sell for a bunch of money and I'll make a great profit on it. But there's still, you have to look at the costs that you invest and how much you paid for the comic, how much the shipping is, the grading. And then you want to like look at that total based on like if you're using a platform to sell like eBay, and just start thinking about that profit margin with it. So if anyone wants to know further about just how I calculate everything, let me know. I'm more than happy to share like the spreadsheet that I use. I do need to update it because of eBay's whole change in their calculations due to them separating from PayPal. And so there are a couple things that I do want to change and update for y'all. But if you do need some type of key, you can kind of see how it calculates. And so I think a lot of it is I'm in the red in a lot of the books I sent to CGC, but a lot of that is because I'm keeping those books for my collection. Versus there are other books that I buy and specifically grade to sell. But that's to overset my cost for those other books that I just sent out to get graded for my personal collection. So it's all about that balance game. And so I buy and sell to fund my personal collection. But it's also fun understanding how you can train your eye, how you can understand when there's certain defects in the books. I'm not saying I'm a pro in any way whatsoever, and I don't know the full grading scale, but I can tell when I see something in the book and I'm just like, that's not a 9.8. And then I can see something where like, this will get me that 9.8, or even possibly a 10. The highest I've ever gotten was a 9.9, but that was on a square bound book. Usually those are more likely to get a 9.9. But let me know your techniques. What have you used in the past to sort of like calculate the grades that you've gotten on books? If you get that 9.6 or 9.4, are you just like, ugh, and really disappointed because you want to get those 9.8s on the books? Are you happy with any grade you get whatsoever? Let me know in the comments down below. I've definitely had some books that I thought were 9.8s and they come back a 7. That's my fault because I didn't see that there was water damage, and then I trained myself to understand what water damage is and how to look for it. All right, well, thanks all for stopping by. I'll have some more content coming out soon for y'all. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.